Hi everyone, welcome to Season 2 of VC Bytes. My name is Gabriel Ha, I'm a PM on the Visual C team, and I'm here with my fellow developer on the C team, Oleg. Those of you who have been keeping up with this series, you might remember from Season 1, Oleg was the featured dev in the kickoff episode of that season, and I am pleased to be with him again for Season 2.
Hi everyone. I've been at Microsoft for 6 years, and all this time I've been working in Visual C team on the Visual C IDE features. The last feature that I worked on that was released publicly was the formatting feature in Visual C++.
So Season 1 was dedicated to new features in the release of the most recent version of Visual Studio, VS 2013, which was released in October of last year. This season is dedicated to the pre-release of the next version of Visual Studio. What we want to dedicate this season to is showcasing the new features that are potentially going to be in the new release of Visual Studio, and hoping that you guys learn about them, try them out, provide us feedback as well. Oleg, since you worked on the feature, why don't you tell our viewers a bit on what we'll be talking about in today's episode?
Sure. The feature that we're going to show you guys today is the new create declaration and definition feature. One aspect of the C++ language is that forward declarations are placed in a file that's different from the file where the items are defined. This is mostly true of functions, and function definitions go in CPP files, whereas the declarations are in header files. And every time you add a new function, you have to remember to make changes to two locations. The new create declaration and definition feature helps you save time by creating the declarations if you only have a definition, and by creating a definition stub if you only have a declaration.
So we're about to go into the demo for the feature, and hopefully you guys will be able to see some tips and tricks along with some hidden functionality about the feature that we hope that you guys will find useful. And as create declaration definition is essentially the first major feature that we worked on together, I'm really excited personally to showcase the work that we've done. Well, I guess mostly this guy.
You designed it.
I did design it. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Hi everyone, welcome to our demo for Create Declaration Definition. We're going to go through a couple of tasks that you as a developer might on some level do similarly. So for this first task, if we hover over the squiggle here, we can see that this function that is defined in the CPP file, it has a couple of errors, and we just see the basic problem is that the class doesn't have a member function, meaning it's likely not forward declared in the header, which you can see to the left of the screen here. And so, ordinarily without the feature, you would have to do a whole bunch of copy pasting, figure out where it's supposed to go. But with create declaration definition, you can click on the refactor menu, acting from right click, and there you go. So when you click it, you see that CodePeek comes up. And right hand side, you can see that the file open is quadrilateral.h, and the function has been put in there and declared for you. The semicolon is in there with all its formatted glory, and the error is now fixed in this case. Let's do a quick example of going the other direction. So in this case, we created a declaration. Let's create a definition now. So we're going to go into our header file. We'll just make something up. Actually, how about this? Let's put another constructor for this class. So we'll call it quadrilateral, and maybe you want a quadrilateral that you can set the sides of it, right? Notice that almost as soon as you're done, that smart tag will come up again, and we can click on that smart tag, and we can create the definition for this function in the CPP file. And so you can see, again, if you weren't viewing the files side by side, CodePeek helps you out by showing you exactly what you've done. And notice that the function is placed in between the constructor and the destructor. And if you look back at the header file, you can see that that's the position that we define this new function. So that's one of the ways that create declaration definition tries to help you out and save you some time, because in general, if you're following good coding practices, you'll preserve the function order in between your files. So let's go to a different example now. Suppose we have a case where the function in question is defined as part of a namespace. So in this case, a quadrilateral generator is not a class, it's a namespace, and it happens to be defined over multiple files. As you can see, we've run a go-to-definition command, and it's spaced over several files. Now, obviously, hopefully you won't run into this situation very often, but there are a couple of cases, especially with legacy code and things like partial classes too, where we run into this issue. And so we're going to try to resolve this in the same way. So when we click on the smart tag in this case, we'll see that we can try to create the declaration of this function called rhombus helper, but it seems that the destination file is something called qrectangle.h. And if you look at the file structure, it seems to make much more sense for something called rhombus helper to go into the file called qrhombus. So in this case, we will use the functionality of create declaration definition to copy it to clipboard. So once that happens, this is the case where we may not know where you want to put it, but you know. So you can just go straight there, go to the place where you want to put it in, and just do a paste. And there you have it, formatted for you and everything. If you had arguments, those will be preserved as well. So this is another usage of the feature where, in the case that we're not smart enough to know where exactly you want it, this is what you can do. So for the last part of our demo, we're going to open another solution. And so in this case, if you look over at a Solution Explorer, there's basically one primary file here. It's called newlibrary.cpp, and it has a whole bunch of functions in it. And if you just take a brief look at the code, you can see the functions are essentially calling each other. And new library isn't a class, which means that all these functions are global functions. And you'll notice that we don't see any squiggles, so it doesn't look like anything's wrong. But if we attempt to do a build, and we'll give it a moment to do that, you'll see that there's a lot of errors. And essentially the issue here is that the ordering of the functions is in a way such that some functions don't know about other functions. And of course this is one of the artifacts of C++, and that's why the for declaration is useful. So in this case, one solution for this would be to create for declarations for all these functions. And so let's go ahead and just do that on one. So you'll notice that we didn't have a header file for this before, but now after using the feature, we've created a header file of the same name, just following good coding practices, as newlibrary.cpp, and we've included the header file in the includes for the CVP file, and so that one works very well. If we then proceed to add another function, let's say regression compensator 1, and we'll do this again, and you'll see that we use newlibrary.h to put that function in. Now, of course, there are 15 functions that we have to go through here, and obviously right-clicking on each of them it works, but it's a very tedious task. So this begs the question, is there a way for us to do multiple functions at a time? And so we've built this into our feature. Essentially, you can select, you just text select all the functions that you want, probably not the main function there. Just perform a right click, do the same thing, and let's see what happens. So notice in the output window, obviously in some cases these functions might be created in different files, so we don't want to put everything in CodePeek because that might not give you the visual that you're looking for. But in the output window, we tell you about all the functions that were created successfully, and also notice that we're quote-unquote smart enough to know that some of the functions already exist as well. The order of all the functions are preserved. Hopefully you guys will find this aspect of create declaration definition useful. So that was our demo. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned something, and hopefully you guys look forward to using this feature as well. Again, to obtain this first CTP, just go ahead and click in the link in the description below, and hope you guys will look forward to enjoying all the new things that we are potentially putting out in our next release of Visual Studio. Thank you for watching, thank you for your time, and thank you for your time as well.
Thank you.
Very happy with the work that we've done on the feature.
I'm happy with it too.
Yeah. Till next time, see you guys around.